Hello, good evening. Welcome back to the Tunnel Podcast, episode 30. Episode 30. I never thought we'd get here, but delighted to be here. It's been another action-packed weekend as we kind of maraud towards the festive period in the Sky Bet Championship. Delighted to say I'm joined by Tom Goff to talk all things English second tier. Tom, how are we doing?
Mate, thank you. I'm still, as you can hear, I'm still doing a little bit of Frank Butcher. It wasn't as bad as the start of the week when we were on, mate, but you can still hear a little tingle there, a little bit of Frank in there still. So, but yeah, I've nearly managed to shake it off. So a lot better, thanks, bud.
Awesome. Listen, there's only one place to start, and it's with your own side. So I'm hoping you're going to remain biased, but unbiased. But I can
unbiased, yeah.
You may not. Biggest game probably arguably of the weekend. Sheffield United coming to the Albion undefeated, and was it 10, 11 before today?
10 games unbeaten, yeah.
Yep, and you know, obviously we know the game finished 2 apiece, but there was loads more to it than just that.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, yeah, it was a cracking game. There's the vast majority of matches at the Hawthorns this season have been pretty drab affairs. So, yeah, it was nice to have a real entertaining game play out in front of the fans, and yeah, it was like you said whilst we were watching it, wasn't it? It had just a bit of a kind of cup match vibes to it. Especially in the second half, really opened up. Not much was going kind of through the midfield. It was just end to end at times, almost like a bit of a basketball game, which was quite surprising, really, when you consider, how good defensively both teams have been. That's been the kind of their foundation, that they've built from. Sheffield United have been absolutely fantastic. I've only conceded 11 goals, so far this season. Lots of clean sheets, and ourselves as well. We're struggling at the top end, but we haven't struggled in defence. We've been really solid from day one. So yeah, to see both teams just kind of gung ho, going for it, 4 goals scored. It could have easily been more. Both keepers made some saves as well. Yeah, it was. It was a shock, but it was a pleasant shock. Really entertaining game.
As I said to you, it kind of felt like a cup tie, but you could have mistaken that for a game in March with the title on the line, because there was that both sides really were, as you say, going for it. Let's I don't want to go through play by play, but Albion actually started really well, and something you said earlier on there, the Hawthorns have been kind of drab affairs up until now. I have to say, I thought the West Brom fans were fantastic today, and they really responded to their team putting on a show. And I think that's going to be key moving forward. It's okay, as you say, getting a point against Sheffield United, great result, but I think beating these other sides where there's maybe been draws at home, we've got to start turning that into wins, because as we're going to touch on in a moment, the top end are pulling away from the chasing pack.
Yeah, it was great to see, because I was worried, obviously, after the draw to Preston last weekend. That was our 9th draw in 10 games. There was a lot of moans and groans coming from the Albion fans, and rightly so. A lot of it was justified, but then there was a small, I'd say it's still a small proportion of Albion fans, who were calling for Corberan's head. They were calling for him to move on and for someone else to be brought in. So yeah, it was great to see, because I think a lot of that was down. The fans were wanting to show Corberan that the vast majority of us are still right behind him, and his team and the players. So yeah, it was great to see, and it's that old chestnut in football, isn't it? That the players then feed off that, don't they? I think the atmosphere, right from the off, it was a top atmosphere, a lot of noise being generated. Obviously, Sheffield United take a lot of fans with them as well, so it was a great atmosphere, and yeah, I think we thrived off that and fed off it, and yeah, we started the game really well. And first 30 minutes, it's probably up there with some of the best we've played this season, especially when you consider who we were going up against. We were right, deservedly ahead, but then kind of crazy couple of minutes just completely turned the game on its head. We've just bit of lapse in concentration, a couple of poor balls out from the back, and fair play to Sheffield United. They've punished us. A couple of well worked goals down the left hand side, and they're all of a sudden in front, and then you're worrying then that, and I think you even said, the fans have got to stick with the team here and Corberan, because if you turn, you start getting on the back, you're not going to get back into the game, and they didn't do that. We continued to get behind them. I think it was evident that Sheffield United, they were missing a few key players, especially in defence. They were looking a bit vulnerable at the back, so we could definitely get something from the game. And second half again, I thought we were really good for long spells in the second half, and at the very least we deserved to get a point. There might be a bit of bias creeping in. I think we might have just edged it. I felt like we maybe did deserve the 3 points, but we definitely deserved something from the game. And I think, even though it's another draw, and that's 11 unbeaten but 10 draws now. I think it's a good point, good performance, good point, and I think it's something definitely to build on now going into the next match.
Let's address the elephant in the room, because the build-up all week has been Carlos Corberan's been linked to the noisy neighbours, Wolverhampton Wanderers. Gary O'Neill under immense pressure. You've just said there about the run. West Brom are on okay, a lot of draws in there, a hell of a lot of draws in there, but it kind of proves, the tactician that Corberan is. No one can figure out this guy and how to beat him. Yeah, well, first of all, just to comment on those the links to Wolves in the week, and then he had an interview. He was obviously his kind of pre-match interview for the game against Sheffield United, and a couple of journalists pressed him on it, and let's just say he kind of didn't give the best response, in that he just completely swerved the question. He was pressed a couple of times, just completely swerved it. And a lot of Albion fans out there, they weren't very pleased with, his response, that he not even kind of jokingly tried to dismiss it or. Do you think, just to come in there, that's a cultural thing? He's not English. I don't think he does a lot of joking in presses anyway, Corberan. Do you think it was just a case of, look, to take the heat off this, we need to focus on the match?
I think so, mate. Yeah.
Or was it a case of he was actually maybe saying, look, I don't want to dismiss it because I may go there? Yeah,
100%. You're absolutely spot on. And, as well with Corberan, there is a bit of kind of lost in translation there sometimes with him as well. His English is getting better and better, but, sometimes there's a bit of kind of, broken English in there. And so, from Corberan's perspective, I don't think there was anything meant by it, but I just think with what had played out prior to that, off the back of the tame performance against Preston, and then the links to the job, and then him not dismissing it, it just kind of upped the ante, for the game against Sheffield United today. So, but look, I think we were having a chat, weren't we? I think, it's not ideal, is it? The fact that we've only won one game in 11 now, but I think there is got to be some encouragement taken from the fact we haven't lost in 11 matches. This league, we've said it many a time, is absolutely bonkers. It's almost impossible to try and pick kind of 4 bankers every week, because there's always one or two surprises, one or two of the top teams getting beaten maybe by one of the teams sat down towards the bottom end of the table. It's just anyone can beat anyone. So
wasn't your more pertinent point the fact that Corberan needs to stop chopping and changing? This is the side now. That's the starting 11. Let's give them a run of games now. Let's see what they can do. Yeah,
I think so. Like my personal take is that I think one of the issues has been he has been tinkering a little bit too much. He's had a bigger squad available to him this season, and I do think he's been guilty of tinkering a little bit too much, and that's cost us sometimes, especially with substitutions later in the game. I think there's been times when he's made subs for the sake of making subs, and they haven't been needed. And I think we've said it before. I do think there's an air of cautiousness about him, that he's got to try and what's the word? Just kind of
air out, move away from.
Yeah, I think he's just too cautious at times, and I think he's, in order for us to kind of progress. I think he's got to be a bit more proactive at times going forward and take the game to the opposition. Try and kill the game. That's what I'm looking for. There's time. Yeah.
Sorry, is the argument though that he maybe didn't have the trust in the squad early on in the season because there was a lot of new players come in, as me and you spoke about before. Mikey Johnson, electric last 6 months of the season. I thought probably today was the best show I've seen him this campaign, especially second half. He was trying to make things happen. His pass was more, it was quicker, it was into feet, it was, there was a bit more zip about him second half. So I just think maybe if as you say, if he sticks with his 11, gets that trust back in, then you might see that more expansive football that you become accustomed to under him.
100%, mate. I agree with that, and I feel as well. And I've said this a couple of times on my page now that I think with January obviously not too far away now, I do think if we can get a couple of good additions in January, like you said, he's worked with these guys now for half a season. He's been able to work out whether they're going to make the cut or not, who he likes, who he trusts, etc. If we can make a couple of more good additions in January, a couple of decent loan signings like we have done in recent seasons, then I fully believe that we can start turning some of these draws into wins. And look, I said it, I put it on X afterwards. If we can play like we did, if we can maintain those performance levels like we did today against Sheffield United, we will win more games than we draw. But that's been another issue, finding that consistency, playing like that. We always seem to play better against and perform better and pull out a performance against the better teams, and not so much the I don't like to say it, but the lesser teams, the teams who are kind of sat further down the table. So I think he's the right man for the job. I think there's more pros than cons. I do feel like we're just a couple of jigsaw pieces away from completing the puzzle, mate. I really do. And I think today, it shut a few of the doubters up. It was a really good performance against a team who I think are definitely going to be battling for automatic promotion. No, they were missing a few players, but they still had a lot of talent on that pitch today, Sheffield United. So I was feeling positive after the performance, mate. Definitely.
Yeah, 2 points off the playoffs, West Brom. And Carlos Corberán will always be linked with jobs because he's just got that repertoire now. Okay, let's quickly talk about the visitors then, because I thought, actually, as well as they dropped points, it could be an even darker day for Chris Wilder. Therese Campbell, he's been in a real purple patch, 6 goals in 8 games now. He went off with what looked like a hamstring injury. That could maybe see him out of the festive period. You're talking about January incomings. I saw a statement, I think, from the 2 potential new owners saying that they may, give Chris Wilder some money in January. One comes on. I don't think he's a starter in my mind, especially with the way they play. You saw that second goal. It's a lovely move, and Harrison Burns gets the ball into the box, and it's a poacher's finish. Therese Campbell seems to work well, in between the goalposts. So, do you think, in terms of Wilder now, Leeds are breathing down their neck, 1 point behind, that will be his key area of focus come the January window? Maybe a centre mid for our blaster and a striker as well.
Yeah, look, I know it sounds bad, but when he pulled up, I was pleased as a West Brom fan because he'd been causing us this thing. Excuse me, mate. He'd been causing us problems. Obviously, got the second goal for Sheffield United. But yeah, obviously it's not nice to see because, like you said, he's in a bit of a purple patch at the minute. His career didn't really take off at Stoke. He hasn't done much for a few seasons now, and like you said, he looked like he was proper settling into some form with Sheffield United. So yeah, they're going to be absolutely good to see him come off holding his hamstring. And yeah, it's funny because, as you know, I took part in a Sheffield. I was a guest on the Sheffield United podcast earlier in the week, obviously talk about the game, and he was basically saying that the only thing he thinks that could potentially scupper them is these injuries and these suspensions they've got that have kind of been mounting up a little bit of late, and that's obviously another one to add to the list. So it does sound encouraging though that this takeover seems like it's finally going to happen, and that they are going to kind of support Wilder right from the off, and that there might be some money for him to spend in January, because yeah, I think it's probably going to be needed if they want to kind of maintain these ambitions of going up automatically, then yeah, Arblas is a massive loss in midfield, and if Campbell's out for a prolonged period of time, yeah, he's going to be another huge loss for him, and it don't seem to have kind of real like for like swaps coming off the bench, do they? There's not that.
Just on that, then, actually, because Rhian Brewster is like an absolute myth at the moment. The guy does a lot of warming up, but doesn't do actually any action on the pitch. It's a strange one, that, because they spent a lot of money on this kid.
Yeah, well, it was a few seasons ago as well, wasn't it? Obviously,
he was meant to be the next best thing, him and Solanke. And obviously, Solanke's gone on to great things, but Brewster's really stalled.
The only thing that I have, whenever Rhian Brewster's name's mentioned, or he came off the bench earlier, is that famous clip when he was in the barbers showing off his Champions League winners medal. Remember when Liverpool won the Champions League?
No,
I'll have to show you after, mate. It's absolutely brilliant. He did this real kind of slick video in the barbers getting this trim with his Champions League winners medal on. It turned out he'd played 4 minutes or something as a sub. He'd done absolutely nothing for him. And then he's got
images of Eddie Murphy coming to America barbershop, but it's clearly not.
Well, I'll send it to you afterwards. You can kind of take your own view on it. But yeah, after that, he's gone to Sheffield United and he's just done absolutely nothing. I'm sure they spent around £20 million for him. And
yeah, upwards of 15 million easily.
Yeah, I think a lot of Sheffield United fans would be glad to see the back of him. I think Earnshaw was saying when he came on earlier that he hasn't scored in 12 or 13 games, something like that, which is
horrific for a striker.
It's just poor going, isn't it? Like you said, for a guy who supposedly kind of had the world at his feet and was, the next best thing, to come out of the Liverpool academy, he's just kind of flopped badly, hasn't he? So yeah, I don't think the Sheffield United fans will be, wanting to rely on him to fill the boots of Campbell whilst he's on the sidelines. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they'll be wanting a replacement brought in January, if it is to be a quite a bad injury he's picked up.
Okay, just on the top four, I think 3 points now separate Sheffield United down to Sunderland. Good weekends actually for Leeds and Sunderland, with Sheffield United and Burnley drawing. I know you watched the Sunderland game with real interest. Young Watson, stole the show.
Yeah, he's the first time I properly saw him was when I sat down and watched when West Brom went and played them away a couple of weeks back, and he was the player that stood out for me for them. Again, another young young lad that brought through their academy who just looks to be destined for the top. Jack Clark at the start of the season was a massive loss for them, but this lad's come in and he's just kind of filled his boots and looks to be another top talent they've unearthed. And it was an odd game, to be fair, because again I think this weekend, with all the bad weather we've had, and the wind and the rain and everything, I think that's probably had a bit of a say on how these games have played out. A bit like the game today, in that it's difficult, isn't it, to kind of maybe kind of keep the ball on the floor and play, possession based kind of, what I mean? It's almost all had to revert a bit old school, hasn't it, with the weather conditions and what they've been like. And that's what it was like in that game. It was quite end to end. And Stoke had some good spells, and they caused Sunderland some problems, but I think Sunderland were definitely deserved of the 3 points. They probably made it a little bit harder than it should be. The Stoke goalkeeper Janssen made some cracking saves. So yeah, they definitely deserved the 3 points. And yeah, it was a much needed win for them, wasn't it? Because I think it was
old of late. You put that curse on them about 5 weeks ago, saying that they're going to fall away, and they decided to do that. But obviously, they tuned in and they turned up. That's
it. Yeah. So yeah, it was a big win for them because it's obviously kept them in touching distance of the teams chasing the automatic spots.
Ironic as well, mate, that their neighbours have helped them out. Borough getting that draw against Burnley's really helped them out, actually.
Yeah, well, that was the perfect result for them. All those teams would have been looking at that Burnley-Borough game and going, I hope this one's a draw, and we can obviously get the 3 points and put a bit more distance between us. So yeah, it was Yeah, good win for Sunderland. Look, I'm still adamant. I'm still adamant that they at some point they will cut adrift a bit from those teams. The three teams above them at this moment in time. I really do think that we will see those top three pulling away. I don't think it's going to be like as extreme as the teams last season.
I'm not convinced by Burnley. I know they're still there, but I just feel like when I watch them, I don't see as much pizzazz as what I do when I see a Leeds at home or a Sheffield United at home. I think both those sides are stronger. I would say Sunderland, are probably going to, get a playoff spot for sure. Again, it's a lot of good home form, certainly. But the top two at the moment feel like, to me, that's going to be in the top two. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but I think Yorkshire's going to be, the place to be when it comes to promotion this season of the Championship.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. If someone was to push me right now, I think Sheffield United and Leeds United are your better teams. I think the thing with Burnley is, yeah, you're right. I've watched a couple of their games and it hasn't been, easy on the eye. It's been a bit of a hard watch. It's been a bit of a grind, but they just don't concede any goals, mate. Talking about Sheffield United,
they're very stuffy, aren't they?
Well, how good defensively Sheffield United are. They've conceded 11. Burnley have conceded 7 goals all season. 7 goals. That's incredible, really. And they are scoring goals as well. I know they were scoring a lot at the start and have tailed off of late, but they're only 3 goals behind Sheffield United as well. So I think, I was of the same opinion of you. I really was, that I wasn't really impressed with them. But I just think they are going under the radar a little bit. Look at their last 6 games. They've won 4 and drawn 2. So they're doing something right. And like I said, defensively, they're incredible, really. 7 goals conceded in 19 matches. That's a great record. So yeah, I do agree with you. I think Sheffield United and Leeds have got much more in attack than Burnley, and you got to score goals, and you got to score goals and to win games and to get out of this division. So I think that will be telling. But yeah, I think if someone was to press me now, though, in terms of who'll be fighting for automatics, I can't look past those 3 teams. I honestly can't. I think the rest underneath them will start to fall away a little bit.
Okay, let's draw a line under the top 4. Look, we mentioned that Leeds United, they were up against Derby County. Paul Warne has come out with some strange comments at full time, which have upset the Derby County faithful. Look, I've watched the 7-minute interview. I know there's been snippets clipped out, and you can probably take that out of context. I've watched the whole thing, and I have to say, some of it is understandable. However, the main takeaway is we're playing a Premier League team with a League One side sprinkled a bit of sugar on top. Was that wise to say? Even though it's in the heat of the battle, was that wise to come out with it full time?
No, I don't think. Again, look, I'm obviously not a Derby County fan, but from what I have seen on social media, there's a lot of Derby County fans who aren't impressed with what he said. I think.
One called him a PE teacher with a sprinkling of sugar on top, which I thought was quite apt.
I just think he's just worded it in such a terrible way that if you're one of the players and you see that, I think you've got every right to be really upset with how he's worded that, because ultimately he's not wrong, is he? Let's put it out there. He's not wrong. Derby came up from League One last season. Yeah, I know, that would have been impressive, right? And come up from League One last season. They've not spent crazy amounts of money. They made a couple of decent additions to the team, but the vast majority is still the same squad that brought them up from League One last season. And they're going up against a league team who have got Premier League quality throughout it. So. In terms of what he said, he wasn't wrong, but I don't understand, because I was kind of jumping in and out between the Sunderland Stoke game and the Derby Leeds game. And look, Leeds were the much better team. They won 2-0, but they had a lot more chances. The Derby keeper made some absolute cracking saves. He's one I wanted to mention because he looks a real good signing for him. He looks fantastic. But they didn't look like, completely out of their depth. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the way he was talking afterwards was like, there was this massive, massive gulf between them. And I don't feel like that was the case. Leeds United could do what they did to Derby. We're talking about Ellen Road to West Brom, to Borough, to they did it to Sheffield United. Do you remember that early on in the season, that big game? They absolutely battered him. So I just don't understand.
Is there an element right here where we think actually managers are getting interviewed too much, probably every other day, and that they're running out of things to say? Okay, some of the stuff he said at the start, actually, you couldn't argue with. He was saying that, at halftime, I told, did I want the interviewer said, did you want to go out and have a go? And he said, no, I wanted to come out, shut up shop, and if we kept it to 2-0 at last 20 minutes, if we got a goal, we could have come back from that. Didn't want to be embarrassed, which you can kind of agree with.
Yeah.
But then he says something that I think fans don't want to hear. He said, even when we did have the ball, I was thinking to myself, how are we going to ever create anything? That's the manager. That's your man in charge. Yeah. And if he's sitting on the sideline thinking, I don't think we can win here today, then maybe we should keep that in-house.
I think so, mate. Look, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you don't know how the players inside that dressing room have taken it. We're just kind of making assumptions here. But I just think there's like you said, I think the core of what he was, some of the things that he was saying in that interview were true. But I just think how he's gone about saying it, he's not gone about it in the right manner whatsoever. And I'll be almost certain that some of those Derby players would be disappointed with what he said and how he said it. Because again, I've said I think Derby, are doing okay. I really do. I think
16th, Tom, for a newly promoted side isn't bad.
Yeah, and again, they every time I've seen them play, they've held their own. Again, this is why I find it a bit baffling, is that they do not look. There's been a couple of times this season where I've watched Portsmouth, for example, and even Oxford, where it's almost like you could see the gulf there. They've just been completely outclassed. They've took a battering, and there's been you can see the gulf there, and it's been almost like top of the Championship, League One team. It's there for everyone to see. But every time I've watched Derby, it's never been like that. They've always given every team a good game. They've made it difficult for them. They've been in matches. They don't lose games. They don't lose games by it's always the odd goal. So yeah, look, again, take it with a pinch of salt. I always think it's a risky business interviewing these guys straight away after a game. Anyway, I just think I personally feel that in this day and age as well, they should be given time to talk to their players, calm down. At least take a bit of an initial assessment of what's played out, a bit of a recap on some of the key highlights, this, that, and the other, and then go and speak to the press. You're speaking to these guys straight afterwards. Like you said, the adrenaline's high. You've worked on it all week, and it's not gone to plan, and you've been in the dressing room.
Do you think as well with this one, Tom, there was a lot of build-up where they build this game up as a derby because of Spygate and this, that, and the other. There was a lot of build-up in the week, a lot of pressure on the match, and maybe Derby fans were going there with the chest pumps out, thinking we're gonna perform today because it's Leeds United, and it didn't quite happen.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to mention that. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. And when I was watching the game, they were talking about it, and I was like, that's long gone. What played out, that classic playoff match where Lampard's Derby obviously dumped Bielsa's Leeds out of the playoffs, and that's going back some years now to that. And obviously the two teams have taken different paths since then. Obviously Derby have gone down into the third tier of English football and managed to come back. So I couldn't get my head around that. That was really clutching at straws from Sky Sports, I felt, to kind of try and make the game something more than it was. But I just think, you're spot on. I think when these guys are interviewed, sometimes they maybe, slip of the tongue and a few things that you do have to give them a bit of a benefit of that. But like you said, it wasn't just the one or two comments. It was quite a scathing interview, wasn't it, all the way throughout? And I always think as well, even within an interview, you've got an opportunity to maybe kind of rephrase something or take something back and say,
he believed every word he was saying.
Yeah, it did seem like you said, it looks almost like his head's gone, and that's how it did seem to me, that he was just absolutely laying into his players, and I just felt this is an outsider looking in, that it was just uncalled for, really, and just a bit odd and peculiar.
Difficult if the fans do start turning to win them back on side, but it's one we'll watch as the season progresses. You know, like I say, 16th for Derby's probably where I'd see them there or thereabouts point, if not down there scrapping. So he's done okay until now. Let's turn our attentions to actual some results at the weekend. You know, big wins, as you say, for Coventry and Portsmouth. Portsmouth, by the way, absolutely bust my cooking. We spent last Monday night waxing lyrical about this Bristol City side, and you called it. You know, there's just no consistency. They go from game to game. And it's worrying if you're Liam Manning. But let's start with Coventry. And Frank Lampard gets that late winner down at the Den. That's a good win on the road for him to get things off and running.
That's absolutely massive result. That is, you know, that would have been a bit of a banker for me if I was a betting man and I was doing my accumulator. I would have put money on Millwall getting the 3 points there. You know, with just for the fact that Lampard's obviously only just walked through the door, and Millwall are such a force at home. You know, for them to get the win. And look, I watched the extended highlights, obviously, in kind of preempting, you know, this chat, and they were good for the 3 points, mate. They deserved it. They created, you know, more chances, you know, more clear cut chances than Millwall, and yeah, I think they definitely deserved the 3 points. Yeah, it's absolutely massive result. I'm a bit gutted because we've got them in the week, you know. They come to the Hawthorns and they're going to be absolutely buzzing after that. You know, their tails are going to be right up, because that was a cracking win. And like I said, you know, I watched back. They played some nice football on the front foot, took the game to Millwall. You know, and Millwall as well. You know, the chances that they showed on the highlights, they were kind of limited to kind of shots from outside the box. You know, it looked like they performed really well defensively as well, Coventry. So yeah, he needs a big thumbs up after that, because I tell you what, I don't think there was many out there, myself included, who thought they were going to go and get the 3 points away at Millwall, you know, in his second game in charge.
I know we're talking about Coventry, but I did listen to Neil Harris come out after the game and sort of had a go at Millwall fans, saying, look, if you take three key players, I think Tanganga and a couple of others were missing, and he said, this is us, this is what we've got. So it was more of a kind of reality check for them in particular. But just on, you know, Mason Clark, he seems to be on a bit of a purple patch himself. Pops on at the backstick again for another, you know, winner. You know, Frank Lampard spoke after the game, kind of saying that, you know, messages are starting to get across, and as you say there, you can see that in the way they're playing. Yeah,
it's a. I tell you what, Peterborough, he's another product from Peterborough, you know. So he was
what a machine they are.
Mate, they're just unbelievable. Just like, so I think he was at Barnet. I was looking earlier where Peterborough plucked him up from, but they have this incredible ability, Peterborough, at just spotting these guys in the lower leagues, bringing them to Peterborough and
giving them a chance.
Just giving them a chance, and then just making some serious money from him. And he's another one. He was another one who was absolutely fantastic for Peterborough last season. Coventry spent a bit of money on him, but I remember watching him a few games at the start of the season, and you know, he wasn't starting matches. So for whatever reason, Robbins, you know, wasn't starting him. Whether it was he felt that you know, he needed a bit more time to kind of bed into the team and get, you know, up to speed with his tactics, etc. But yeah, I was watching him and he kept coming off the bench. So it looks like Lampard's come straight in and he's took a real fancy to him, and he's rewarding him, hasn't he, for that faith? Because yeah, he got a goal last week they drew, didn't they, in the first game with Cardiff, and then yeah, he's popped up with a tidy finish, you know, in the game at the weekend.
Come on, you see a tidy finish. Was it a tidy finish or did he sclaff it? Because it kind of went off.
You're right, actually.
Was it convincing, was it?
No, because it looked from behind. It looked like he side-footed it, nestled it into the top corner. But then you're right, from the other angle, it looks like it's kind of come off his ankle, done it, and he's fudged it a bit. So yeah, all right, maybe I'm giving him.
He's not caring, is he?
He ain't caring. You got to be in the right position, haven't you, mate? And that's the key thing, isn't it?
It's the ball as well. It's one of those balls where if you're a defender, you don't want to touch it because it's going in the back of the net. So a bit like you know, Harrison Burrow's ball earlier on today. I think those are the kind of balls you want if you're an attacking player. Let's jump on to Pompey then, because I thought Pompey were really good. You know, so as you say, caught the highlights. It's probably as aggressive as I've seen them this season. Played some nice stuff. The press for Murphy's goal was incredible. So real plaudits to them. What, as we often say on here, no smash and grab. They deserve that victory.
Yeah, well, it just, again, I didn't watch the game. I watched the extended highlights, and just first of all, it just looked like they were pumped for the game. They've had a couple of games called off, haven't they, for whatever reason. So, they go into this game one or two ways. They're either just chomping at the bit, they want to play some blooming football, or, that kind of couple of games called off has just had, a real negative effect on them. But no, they were at it right from the off. And they obviously did their homework, because they just were hounding Bristol. Every time they were playing it out from the back, their press was just, instant, intense. And, that's where all their goals stemmed from, wasn't it? Just real top quality pressing, giving Bristol, and their midfielders no time on the ball, forcing them into errors. And, they were just relentless with it. And look, they scored 3 goals. The Bristol City keeper, he must have made about 3 or 4 top saves on top of that as well. It could have been, easily, 4 or 5, 6 goals even. So, that's a massive win for them. And look, this is again, this is that what I saw at the weekend, is what I was expecting to see more of
from the
Portsmouth so far this season. In that at home. Such a small stadium, but it's a cracking little old school stadium with the fans right next to the pitch, and it can get quite intense. And on top of you, can't it? That they were going to use that to advantage, play like they did against Bristol. Really kind of get at the opposition, get the fans behind them. It's just about now, isn't it? It's just the classic now that consistency. If they can keep those performance levels, to there or thereabouts, and I'm sure they'll start picking up some more points. But it was a great performance for them. It's obviously moved them off the bottom, and they're in the mix, and they've got a couple of games in hand now as well, haven't they? Because of those games.
They've got a game in hand on Plymouth and Cardiff, and 2 on QPR. So there's 2 on Hull, who are obviously below them now. We'll speak more about Hull on tomorrow night's show over on the Rangers Rabble podcast. But just on comments after the game, I listened to Josh Murphy, who actually I thought that was a really shrewd signing. Oxford went up and he moved there. Him and both John Harley spoke after the game, kind of saying, "Look, we've clicked today. This is where we want to be. That's the real us you've saw today." As you say, it's about churning that out week on week, and like most of the sides in the Championship, your home form is massive.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And it's, again, a bit of a cliche, but the teams that come up from League One, it's even more important, I feel, home form, because it's you're absolutely scrapping and battling for points in every game. So building a bit of momentum, a bit of form at home is absolutely vital, and obviously staying in the division. Like I said, that's why I've been so surprised at how poor they've been at Fratton Park. But it's that press. I remember when we played them really on in the season, and the first 15 minutes, they were hammering us with that press, and it was causing us problems. But they just, for whatever reason, they couldn't see it through.
Listen, it's very hard to do for a full 90 minutes. Look, I've watched a lot of Scottish football. Celtic do it incredibly well. I don't know if you're aware of Dyson Maeda. He's probably the best presser in the game, and I mean that world football. He really goes. So the key to pressing is going as a side, and I thought they got that spot on at the weekend.
Definitely, mate, 100%. And yeah, look, they'll I don't know who they've got following it up, who they've got in the week, but they got Norwich at home. There we go. That's a good game. Another home game against the Norwich team, who are really kind of inconsistent at this moment in time. So they've got a great opportunity there to get another 3 points, and if they can replicate those performance levels like they did against Bristol, then they will definitely cause Norwich some problems. But it's the classic. You've got to maintain that. You've got to keep those consistency levels, and not switch off. That's the other thing they've been really prone at, is just kind of making some real basic mistakes and errors. They didn't do that in the game against Bristol, and look where it's got them. So, but they'll be absolutely chuffed with that. Great 3 points for them. Against Bristol as well, like you said, mate. They're just they did and they didn't. In that we were obviously talking them up, weren't we? Saying they've got all the ingredients to become, a playoff contender this season. We went through their starting 11. The kind of experience, but the touch of youth we've got in there as well. That they should be up there competing. But then I called it. I said to you, like, they'll probably go to Portsmouth in their next game and lose, and that's their problem. They're just so inconsistent. It must drive their fans absolutely bananas. So, yeah.
I think if you're a championship side doing well, you don't want us to talk about them. If you're a champion side not doing well, you want us to talk about them, because we had Portsmouth written off weeks ago, had them pretty much back in League One, and they're showing that bit of spirit. Okay,
QPR as well, mate. QPR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, we did talk QPR up a bit, to be fair.
We did, we did. But yeah.
Okay, listen. We're fast approaching January, and one championship story that's not going away, coming out every other day, is Louis Barry, currently on loan, obviously at Stockport. He's getting linked with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the second tier. Most notably today, Middlesbrough. Now, let's first and foremost talk about the player himself. I've seen a bit of Stockport. He scored some belters in the last few weeks. I know he didn't do too well against Birmingham, and they actually loved that because obviously he's on loan from the Villa. But a real talent, and that step up is probably what he needs.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be a bit of an odd move for him to go to Middlesbrough, if I'm honest with you, because I think they've already got some great, attacking talent at Middlesbrough. They've got obviously Latte Lath and Tommy Conway. They're both on about 7, 8, 9 goals each, who are kind of doing a bit of rotation at the moment. So I can't see why Villa would want to send him there, because I think he is going to struggle. I think they need to be sending him to someone where he's going to be guaranteed, first team football. So I think, I'd personally be surprised. I think he's going to end up at maybe a team kind of in the bottom half. A team that's kind of,
Would you not take him at West Brom?
Well, look, mate, we were obviously having a chat, and I was saying that he is, which, to your surprise, he's another West Brom Academy graduate, and it's another one that stings. It really stings a lot of the West Brom fans because, he got poached. He got poached, funnily enough, by Barcelona, and it was very controversial at the time because there was meant to be I think it was like £1 million fee quoted for him. Which for a 16-year-old or whatever it was, at least we'd got, a decent bit of money for him. And Barcelona held out on paying it, and it all got a bit messy, and it all got a bit legal and all the rest of it. And I don't even know what happened in the end, but he ended up leaving Barcelona and going to Aston Villa, obviously his parent club at this moment in time. And, it's not the first time one of our academy products has ended up at Aston Villa. Obviously, Morgan Rogers is another quite famous one, and Finn Azaz, who's at Borough doing bits, at this moment in time. So the thing is, I keep forgetting that we've already got a player on loan from Aston Villa at this moment in time in Lewis Dobbins. So I think we'd have to probably send him back in order to bring Barry in. Look, I think what I've just told you, I don't think he would come to West Brom, to be honest with you, because it all left a bit of a sour taste in the club's mouth with how things played out and how he ended up back in the Midlands, but are bitter rivals. But yeah, I think everything I've seen of him, he looks a real exciting prospect. Goal scorer, but he can score goals in the box, outside the box. He does look a bit slight. That's probably the only thing I'd say maybe holding him up, a bit on the smaller side. And, it is a step up, isn't it, into the Championship. But I don't think, that doesn't necessarily mean, it's not going to take off for you. I think he'd be much better suited at a team, towards the bottom who are struggling for goals, who, he's going to be guaranteed playing, a lot of minutes for.
The issue is Villa have stipulated they want him at someone that's playing free-flowing football, attacking football, and at the top end. Now, we've ruled out Borough because of obviously the options they've got. However, the reason they may be leaning towards Borough is they'll see what Carrick's doing for Ben Doak and think we want a bit of that. Yeah,
you're right, but I think it's a bit optimistic. It's a bit optimistic. Yeah, it's a bit pie in the sky. I think if you were to look at some of the teams, I think maybe Sunderland, because they are from the teams up there who could do with, a goal scorer. I think they're one of the teams.
Burnley though, and how poorly they're struggling maybe up top. Is that an option?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's not possible. I just think...
I think Chef Wednesday might be a good fit. And I know they have been interested, but if they can maybe get themselves a bit closer to that top six, that might not be a bad shout, because I do feel that they're missing a link, between the front and, middle to front.
Yeah, mate. Every team needs a goal scorer, don't they? 100%. Everyone's looking for a guy who knows where the back of the net is. And I think, to be honest with you, probably 3/4 of the league are crying out, looking at the team down here, crying out for a guy to come in and start scoring goals from. But I think, it's all well and good saying, we want him to go and join a team, play a certain brand of football that, that we want him to play. But then, what's the point in sending him to Middlesbrough and he hardly gets any minutes? All right, well, he could just be coaching with Unai Emery, couldn't he? And in his team and all the guys, the playing staff at Villa. So, yeah, they'll want to.
Tom, I don't want to put a dampener on it, but he feels a million miles away from the Villa starting 11.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They're moving on to extraordinary levels here, and I just feel like he probably needs to accept that. And if he is going to go to a championship side, he probably has to get stuck in straight away.
I'm just going to say this, and you're probably going to think there's a little bit of bitterness, shall we say, in me saying
behave.
But I think it's a hard jump. There's been plenty of players who've scored goals for fun in League One, and the Championship teams had to look at it and think, well, if they're scoring this amount of goals in League One, surely they can make the step up to the Championship. And continue in a similar vein. More times than not, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't. There's, again, like the Championship to the Premier League, there is a gulf there. There's a gap there. And I do think, if he was to jump up into the Championship in January, I do think it'd probably be too soon for him. I think, I don't understand the rush. It's like you said, he's a million miles.
There's a point for me. What you're going to say there, I think. And I'm old-fashioned. If you're going to go on loan, stay for the season. I think if you're going to don't jump ship in January. It's a difficult time for transfers anyway. To move and try and get settled, I would say take the season, have your pre-season, and then start again.
100%, mate. And I just don't, especially when we're talking about young players here. Like, it's just one season in their career, and you're playing for a team, you're scoring goals, you're getting minutes. Your confidence absolutely sky high. Why potentially ruin that? Just get him back at the end of the season and reassess it and send him out somewhere again. The other one that drives me nuts as well, mate, is this loaning someone to one team for the first half of the season, then loaning him to another team in the same division. So, like,
we may see with Tom Cannon.
Tom Cannon, I've seen plenty of rumours about Leicester wanting to send Tom Cannon to a better team, so to speak, in the Championship, one of the teams who are competing towards the top. Well, I don't get it. Like, you want him, I know you want him to progress and you want him to, you want him to be, playing a certain level of football, etc. But, Stoke are going to be mid-table this season. They've picked up a little bit. He's scoring goals. He's getting better and better as each game passes. He could quite easily end up on 20 goals if he stays at Stoke for the season. You take him away from that in January, and then, a few weeks where he's not, he's training back at his parent club and you're trying to negotiate a deal, you could just throw a complete spanner in the works. He's got to start all over again.
I don't think, and this is a wild shout, but I don't think clubs actually focus on the player's well-being. He may be very happy and settled at Stoke. To go somewhere else, let's just say it's Sunderland or Blackburn or somewhere else, that it's then going to take a bedding in period, which probably did take from at Stoke. He didn't hit the ground straight away. Schumacher brought him in. He didn't hit the ground till Pellis, came in. So I do think that, the player's well-being needs to be brought into it, chopping and changing. We all think, right, it's the player on a Saturday we see. No, this guy's got a family maybe, he's got children, he's got to move, settle in. So I just think all of that is the complete package. I think loan should be for the season, unless it's an emergency loan, which happens in the low leagues. But loaning a player for 6 months just seems absolutely crazy to me. And as you say there as well, he's he's then contributed to Stoke finishing X, Y, and Z, and then he's going to go to another team who may actually knock Stoke out of a place or whatever. I don't know. I don't like it, as you say. I think see the season out. It's a kind of a full circle, and just to go back to Louis Barry, if he does go to, I don't know, Swansea or whoever it may be, and plays every week, but it's absolute struggles, and it's a real tough move for him. It could break his career.
Exactly, mate. Absolutely spot on. It could just have a real negative effect on him in that, there's obviously a lot of talk and a lot of hype about him at this moment in time, and people saying he's ready for that step up, and then like you said, if he was to do it and it doesn't play out and he has a real tough time of it, some all players are different, aren't they? Some have got the mentality to kind of brush that off and go again, but others, like you said, they can be hurt by it, and it can take them a lot of time to get over it. So
I just come back into a conversation a few weeks ago about players being pawns, and there's no real connection between club and player. It's you're going there, pack your bags, off you go. You're a player. If your boss rang you tonight and said, "Tom, pack a suitcase, tomorrow morning you're going to Inverness," you'd say, "Well, why? I don't want to go." You'd question the move. Whereas I don't feel like players really do that. I think majority of players will just move on and try and get the job done. Where I don't think Aston Villa, if Unai Emery wants to come on and tell me any different, have I got any real interest in where Louis Barry ends up in his career? I don't think he is part of those plans. I think they'll probably have a loan manager in place who'll be dealing with all of this. A lot of big clubs do that now, and they'll be trying to just protect their asset and trying to get some sort of cash for him. So if he goes to the Championship and does really well, they'll get 15, 20 million quid for him. Especially if he helped it, let's just say he turned it on and helped the team to get promoted, then wow, incredible. So I just think that maybe they're trying to protect their asset, which, as I say, it's a bugbear for me. I think players need to be treated like individuals and not just kind of, a blank board with it. And I don't know what you're thinking that.
No, I agree 100%, mate. I think it's, I think. It does differ, doesn't it, amongst other teams? Because I do know, I have read, pieces on players who have, the clubs have almost allowed them, so to speak, to remain a loan team because they've been having such a successful time there, and like you said, they've settled in, etc. But you are right. I do think more and more teams now, it's like what you said, just in terms of managing an asset and just trying to just steer that the player to the most profitable height, if that makes sense. But
which is actually, in a sense, if you were a manager of a Premier League club and you're looking at your player and he's doing really well here, and it is January, and I think January, as we've just said, is a precarious time of the year for everyone. It's a gamble.
Gamble. It is 100%, and there's got to be some. I think as well with just how. Like the data and the analysis side of things is just getting obviously stronger and stronger all the time with football. Just absolutely crazy. I do think that's playing a role in it as well, because like what you've just been saying there about Villa have probably looked at it and thought, well, we want him to be playing this system, and this type of game with this type of press in order for him to kind of reach the next level of his progression and hit these triggers, etc., etc. I know that sounds a bit bonkers, but that's undoubtedly what's going on, and that they've probably earmarked teams that they would like to, see him move to based on how they play in their, their setup and their approach and etc. So, that probably plays a big role in it as well. But yeah, I think as a fan, you look at it and sometimes you just think it just doesn't make any sense. That guy's there playing fantastically well, scoring goals or, whatever position, defending well. He's got a rapport with the team. Just give him the season. Like you said, what is another? It's not even 6 months, is it? What is it? It's January to May, isn't it? It's nothing, isn't it? We're literally talking a few more months of football here. And like you said, the amount of time it takes some players now to bed in. Again, reverting to what we're saying about how intense coaching is now. New signings. It's not like back in the day when you could throw them straight in. These guys, they won't get integrated for a very long time until it's almost like they're educated. They've had X amount of training sessions
No, it's like you said there. It's until these guys with the iPads collect all the data and see what his load is and what he can do here and what his stats are against this guy that's in the same position. Add to that as well. I hear a lot of managers, especially in the Scottish Premiership, saying we don't get a lot of coaching time, we don't get a lot of time in the grass because players load and we've got to have rest days and this, that, and the other. Like that comes into it as well. So if you're Louis Barry, you've got to really go and back yourself here. You know, that's what it comes down to. You mentioned there about mentality. Mentality is huge in the game, but not. I don't think players should be accosted because they don't have the mentality that's in that box. You know, if you should still be treated as an individual. So I think, you know, there's a lot to go alongside. Football's got a long way to go on, you know, the mental health side. And, you know, I don't want to delve into that. It's another 3-hour pod. But I just think, this young guy, you've got him in your palm. You know, what was that Devil's Shoes? What was that movie where he says you're in there? What is that?
Oh, Big Man's Shoes, yeah.
Big Man's Shoes, that's it, yeah.
I got your ear, son, you're right here.
Yeah, that's Emery to Louis Barry at the minute. I've got your ear, son, you're in there. So, listen, I hope it works out for him. I really do, because from what I've seen, I watched Stockport the other week. I met him against Wrexham, actually. He was a light of it. But as you say, it's League One. It is another step, and I would probably suggest, if he was listening tonight, if you are watching the tunnel tonight, Louis, then stay at Stockport. And see where it takes you. Okay, Tom, a brilliant effort from us both there. I really enjoyed it. We'll park it for the time being. We are back tomorrow night on the Rangers Rabble podcast. Search for it on YouTube. They've got loads of membership platforms, well, loads and loads of content. It obviously is about Rangers, but we are there speaking about the EFL, trying to widen the audience and doing our absolute best. Tom, a pleasure. If you've listened or if you're watching back, then leave us a comment. Somebody leaves a comment, please. You know, we're gasping for a comment. It would do me. Even if it's my mum just saying hello, that'll do me. or Tom's mum saying hello, that'll do me. Right, guys, we'll see you again on the other side.